Black Connections
on 91.8
Hayes FM. Black Connections
on 91.8
Hayes FM.
Anyhow, Darren, it's lovely to have you here. This is your 26th session of Legal Corner.
It is.
Does that mean it's been over 2 years?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't believe this. Yeah. Where's the time gone? Really and truly. So we've got 3 questions for you, Darren, and then what I'd like us to chat a little bit about. Silly me. Sorry, I wanted to bring a little atmosphere into it. It was a bit too loud. So then once we've done the 3 questions, perhaps you can tell us a bit more about what's going on with the relief efforts for Hurricane Maria, which hit Dominica, of course, as we all know now, on September the 18th. So would you mind doing that?
Yeah, pleasure.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got 3 questions for you. One is a bit short, the other 2 are slightly longer, so please listen carefully. All right, the first question. I listened to one of your previous shows and recall answering a question about marriage, revoking an existing will. Does a divorce do likewise? That's interesting.
Oh, very good question. Yeah, unless a will is made in what's called contemplation of marriage or a civil partnership, then that's fine. If it's not, then on a subsequent marriage, you have to make a new will. But on divorce, a divorce doesn't revoke a will. But what it does do is the former spouse, if he or she were an executor, then that becomes invalid.
Okay.
That appointment as an executor becomes invalid because they're now divorced. And if there was any gifts left to the spouse, they are treated as if the spouse died at the date of the divorce.
Good Lord. Okay.
So nothing passes after the divorce. So it doesn't actually revoke it, but there's steps whereby they don't receive the gifts.
Right, okay. So if you find yourself in that situation, the thing is to make another will?
Exactly.
All right, okay,
exactly.
Cool. All right, so thank you for that. Question number 2. 2 months ago, I was flying from Kuala Lumpur to London. I nearly got that wrong. Koala. I was thinking of the animal. To London with Malaysia Airlines. Upon arrival at the airport, I found out that my flight was delayed by 5 hours. Needless to say, that I arrived at London Heathrow Airport well over 4 hours after I should have done. I am in the process of complaining and wish to be reimbursed for my expenses. However, some of the template letters online are confusing. Can you advise if EU Regulation 261/2004 is the right thing to mention in the letter? So by quoting that piece of legislation, if it is, it's like regulation as opposed to legislation, is it?
Yeah, it's an EU piece of EU regulation.
Okay,
yeah.
So is it worth mentioning that in my complaint letter?
Right, there's a couple of issues there. For that specific regulation, that's otherwise called the denied boarding regulations, it's quite common, but it relates to a flight leaving from or returning to a UK airport, and also with an EU registered airline. So I guess British Airways is covered. However, Malaysian Airlines would obviously not be registered in the UK.
Right.
So that would prevent that regulation 261/2004 being used. In this case, I believe it's the Montreal Convention that, or where compensation is provided for. I think it's Article 19 of the Montreal Convention.
Okay.
Because it's deemed to be outside of the scope of 261/2004.
Right.
So any compensation for delayed flights or expenses incurred, save for extenuating or exceptional circumstances, for like adverse weather, in this circumstance would be provided for under Article 19 of the Montreal Convention and not that specific 261/2004 EU regulation.
Wow.
Because of the Malaysia Airlines is not registered in the UK.
Right, so your advice essentially to this person is that's not the right piece of legislation to use.
That's the wrong piece of legislation to use, yeah.
It's the wrong piece of legislation to use, and the preferred one would be the Montreal
Convention.
Yeah,
Article 19.
Article
From
19.
memory, yeah.
Okay, all right. Gosh, it's complex.
Complex.
Question number 3. My father made a power of attorney in 2005, appointing me as his daughter, as his attorney. I have read that there have been changes to powers of attorney since 2005. So would my father, who is still in his senses, have to make another one? It's interesting actually, because I come across this a lot with in the world of social work, where people who may have lost some of their faculties have to have people as power of attorney for them.
Yeah.
But I think it is that the individual who chooses. But sometimes that's not the case, is it? Sometimes they can be appointed because of the condition of the individual.
Yeah.
However, that's not the question here.
So the question here is, if I understood it, a power of attorney was made in 2005, and while the dad has still got mental capacity, she's wondering if there needs to be any changes or updates made. Okay, I've got the gist of the question. So essentially, powers of attorney made in 2005 were called enduring powers of attorney.
Okay.
We had legislation called the Mental Capacity Act. In fact, it came into full effect 10 years ago to this very day, 1st of October 2007. And that
colleagues of mine often do the assessment.
That's right, yeah. And that changed the name from enduring powers of attorney to what's called lasting powers of attorney.
Okay.
And there are now 2 types, whereas before there was only 1 type. The 1 type in question was for property and financial affairs, which I guess is the case here. And under the new legislation, you can have 2 types. You can still have the property and financial affairs, and you can have the health and welfare power of attorney.
Right.
So while the existing one is still still valid, it doesn't need to be changed. What they may want to do is have one now for health and welfare, to work alongside the property and financial affairs one.
Right.
But I think in answer to the question, the 2005 one is still valid.
Okay.
Just known by a different name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
These things, you see why I did social work, can't you? And my only concern is family law. All right. So that's fantastic, Darren. Thank you so much for that.
Black Connections
on 91.8.
Hayes FM.